Peppa and George were playing in the park with their toys. Suddenly, they found a strange, dirty Labubu in the bushes. The children decided to take it home, and that was a mistake. Mummy Pig washed the toy and hung it up to dry. That night, when everyone was asleep, Labubu came to life and headed to the parents' bedroom, making eerie sounds. Labubu saw Daddy and Mummy Pig fast asleep and crawled under their bed. Suddenly, Mummy Pig woke up with a dreadful feeling and wanted a drink of water. While standing in the kitchen, she heard rustling sounds in the bedroom and hurried back there. In the room, she saw Daddy Pig, but then the door slammed shut behind her and the lights went out. From under the bed, Labubu began to crawl out with a terrifying grin. Mummy Pig panicked and tried to open the door, but she couldn't. Peppa woke up from the awful screams and shook George awake to see what was happening. They saw Labubu drag their parents' bodies into the basement and then suddenly glance sharply at them. The children quickly ran upstairs and hid behind the wardrobe. Luckily, Labubu didn't notice them and went into another room. Peppa and George rushed to the basement to rescue their parents, but when they got down there, horror awaited them. It was empty. Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut and the light went out. Peppa remembered there was a ventilation hatch leading to the kitchen. They quickly removed the grate and began crawling up, but Labubu grabbed George's leg and pulled him down. Peppa tried with all her strength to save her brother, but she couldn't, and George was dragged into the darkness. When Peppa made it to the kitchen, she ran to the front door, but it was locked. She turned around and saw Labubu charging at her with a horrifying scream. Peppa woke up in her own bed, confused about what was happening. She slowly went downstairs and saw her whole family standing there, and in Daddy Pig's hand was a present. Peppa realized it had all been a dream and sighed in relief. The family handed her the gift, but when Peppa opened the box, she screamed. Inside was that very same Labubu toy.
More is needed. A full collection is required.
The fair buzzed with lights and voices. Colorful stalls beckoned with sweets. Peppa pulled Grandpa by the hand toward the brightest stand. The shelves were bursting with Labubu figurines. They all smiled with identical mouths. One golden figurine stood apart. Its crimson eyes followed Peppa's every move, then slowly winked at her. Behind the stall, an emaciated seller looked as pale as paper, their smile frozen too wide with too many teeth. Peppa begged Grandpa to win her a golden figurine. He nodded and moved smoothly. He threw a ball into an arcade machine. The ball hit its target. The figurine dropped into a tray. Grandpa picked it up. His eyes glazed over, and he reached into his pocket, pulling out not just one, but dozens of identical golden Labubus that spilled onto the carpet. He whispered endless repetitions.
More is needed. A full collection is required.
Outside, people with prizes froze in place, their faces fixed with empty smiles. Peppa ran into darkness. The alley behind the fair was silent and dark. A flickering street lamp illuminated an ominous figure, that same seller. But now his body consisted of hundreds of fused figurines. They moved and creaked teeth. Clicking nearby stood Grandpa, whose skin had turned gray and hard, the smile frozen forever. He stared blankly through glassy eyes at emptiness. The seller extended his hand, holding one figurine, a face resembling Peppa's with glowing crimson eyes, a mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. Peppa felt icy coldness at her fingertips. The skin on her palm became smooth and glossy. Hundreds of crimson-eyed monsters stared at her. The silence shattered with a sharp click. No subscribe, nightmares arrive. An old television in the living room flickered with blue light. An advertisement was playing, a cheerful cartoon about Labubu at the cinema. The halls were filled with viewers, but now the theater had long been closed. At the end of the clip, Labubu on the screen stretched out its hand, pointed directly at Evie. A ticket crawled out of the TV speakers, printed on sticky black paper. It smelled of mold. Papa Pig took the ticket. His eyes dulled. He took Peppa and Evie to the cinema. The building was dark, windows boarded up, heavy curtains of cobwebs hung. Inside, it smelled of dust and old sugar. They entered. Shadows sat in the hall, silhouettes, former viewers. They were frozen in their seats forever. Their eyes glowed with a sickly green light. Instead of a cartoon, a distorted version of Peppa's life played on the screen. Her friends smiled too broadly, holding Labubu. Then they showed Peppa's parents. They looked with empty eyes. All served Labubu. Papa Pig leaned toward Peppa. His breath was cold. Soon you will also become part of our happy crew. Peppa jumped up and tried to run. But suddenly the chairs in the hall came to life. Their armrests twisted, turned into black tentacles. They wrapped around her arms and legs, pinning Peppa back to the chair. Evie was projected onto the screen, but her face was Labubu's face. She was laughing. Papa Pig donned a ticket-taker's uniform. His movements became sharp, mechanical. He tore the ticket. Black ink splattered onto the floor. The session had begun. No turning back. The screen went dark. The hall plunged into silence. A sound was heard, a tearing film reel, or vocal cords. No subscribe, nightmares arrive. An anonymous package stood on the nursery doorframe, a bright box. Peppa opened it. Inside there was no figurine. Instead, a bundle wrapped in sterile swaddling cloth lay there. A faint laughter emanated from it. Peppa unwrapped the cloth. It was a plush Labubu. Its eyes shimmered too wetly, too consciously. Peppa threw the toy aside, but moments later it was already lying in Evie's crib. By itself, the toy wouldn't let Evie go. The girl clutched it in her hands. The plush's eyes became alive. Deep, from its half-open mouth, a black substance oozed, thick, sticky. It dripped onto the swaddling cloth, soaking into the baby's skin. Mama Pig was delighted.
Look how much she likes it. How cute.
Her eyes glazed over. Pupils shrank into dots. She didn't see the black veins appearing on Evie's arms. She didn't hear the quiet whisper coming from the toy. The whisper sounded like the squeak of foam rubber. At night, Peppa heard sounds from the nursery. She entered. Evie was awake. Her eyes were wide open, filled with black liquid. The plush Labubu sat on her chest. Its tentacle-like arms had sunk into the baby's hands. Evie wasn't crying. She was smiling. Her mouth stretched into an unnatural grin, just like the toys. Black syrup was flowing from the corners of her mouth. Mama Pig stood in the doorway. Her neck was wrapped in cellophane tape. She was shaking her head. The movements were sharp, jerky.
Quiet. Don't disturb them while they play.
Behind her, in the hallway, a pile of empty boxes was stacked. They moved. Soft whistling came from them. Peppa stepped back. She stepped on something soft. Dozens of plush Labubu lay on the floor. Their eyes gleamed in the dark. The air filled with a sound, a quiet children's laughter, and endless rustling of cellophane. This is a lost episode that was never aired on TV. It all began on a normal day. Peppa lost one of her baby teeth. "Hooray!" she shouted, "Dad." Now the tooth fairy will bring me a gift. Mummy Pig smiled. Put the tooth under your pillow, dear. There'll be a surprise in the morning. That night, Peppa woke up. The room was dark, but something felt wrong. She heard a crunching sound from under her pillow. When she lifted it, the tooth was gone, but there was no gift either. Only a strange white lump, like it was made of bones. The next day, George complained about a toothache. Then Mummy Pig, then Daddy Pig. They all said, maybe we ate something bad. That night, Peppa woke up again, but not from the crunch. This time, from breathing. Someone was sitting by her bed, a figure, gray, far too tall, with long arms and a grin that stretched ear to ear. "Do you brush your teeth well, Peppa?" it whispered. "You give them to me, one by one, every night." Peppa screamed, but no one came. George was asleep with his mouth open. His front teeth were missing. Mummy was standing in the hallway, smiling. On her cheek, a white patch like bone powder. Peppa ran to the mirror. On her face, new teeth were growing, but not hers. A third row, sharp, wrong. She ran back to the bedroom. Everyone's teeth were falling out, more and more every second, and someone stood in the corner. That same figure, but its face. Oh God. Peppa wakes up in her room. Outside the window, dawn is breaking. Everything is calm. She plays with George while Mom and Dad are busy with their chores. A strange feeling outside the window. Peppa approaches the window. The sky is gray, foggy. The air is cold. She feels a sense of unease, as if something is watching her. Distortion of reality. She washes her face and looks in the mirror. Her face changes, her eyes darken, and her smile becomes sinister. A cold blue light appears in the room, creating a distortion effect. Suddenly, the mirror cracks and shatters. Shards fall to the floor, and a shadow appears in the reflection, quickly disappearing. The room disappears, an entrance to another reality. Suddenly, objects dissolve or vanish. Peppa finds herself in a gray room with no windows or doors. The walls are covered with mysterious symbols and fingerprints. A faint rustling sound can be heard in the air. Whispers of the past, soft voices. Remember, you're not alone here. All memories are part of you. They grow louder, as if someone is whispering right into her ear. Peppa feels a chill down her spine. Shadows appear. George with empty eyes, Mommy Pig with tears on her face, Daddy Pig breathing heavily, his face distorted by fear. They move or stand still, their shadows stretch across the walls, creating a creepy atmosphere. Peppa realizes the room has remembered all of the characters' fears. She searches for runes or symbols on the walls to understand what's happening. Suddenly, snake-like hands or claws start stretching out from the walls, trying to grab her. The characters begin to disappear or transform into terrifying creatures. George screams about a zombie dinosaur with empty black-red eyes. Mommy Pig cries, and her tears turn into drops of black liquid. Daddy Pig breathes heavily and looks very scared. His face is distorted by fear. At this moment, a sinister bunny appears with glowing eyes and an evil smile, watching everything with malice. Peppa decides to break the runes on the walls with a hammer. When she hits them, the walls crack and vibrate. At that moment, a huge monster emerges from the darkness, a creature with long claws, sharp teeth, and burning eyes. It growls and tries to grab her. After destroying the symbols, everything around plunges into darkness. The monster roars and disappears into an abyss. The room completely vanishes. Only emptiness or endless darkness remains. Peppa returns to her room. Everything seems normal again. But inside her remains a feeling of heaviness and fear. She sits by the window of her house with a pensive expression, gazing into the distance, as if she senses something sinister inside herself or nearby. George was standing by an open, empty toy box, crying.
My dinosaur is gone.
When the main thing is lost, the scary awakens. Peppa entered the room, hugged her brother, and looked around. Peppa's gaze was drawn to something on George's bed, an old plush teddy bear covered in black liquid. She found not what she was looking for. The buttons on the bear were slightly trembling and turning toward Peppa. Black liquid slowly seeped from a seam under its ear. Suddenly, the bear threw out a paw tentacle and grabbed Peppa's hand. Peppa screamed and threw the bear away. It twitched on the floor, then ran off into the corridor. Peppa grabbed George's hand and ran after him. The chase had begun. Peppa and George wandered in the semi-darkness. On the walls, black paw prints. At the dark end of the corridor, a silhouette of a bear flickered. It disappeared behind the attic door. Where light did not reach, dwelled the keeper. Peppa took a flashlight from the wall. They slowly climbed up the creaky stairs. Along the edges, webs of black tentacles like veins of living darkness. The center of the hall was covered in cobwebs. In it sat the bear keeper, grown to Peppa's size. Around, old toys, dolls with empty eye sockets, cars with red headlights frozen in anticipation. All forgotten toys began to move slowly. Their heads and headlights turned toward Peppa and George. The bear keeper hissed in a low voice.
Lost toys, your fault.
His mouth with needle-sharp teeth opened wide, black liquid pouring out. Tentacles from the bear lunged at Peppa. She dodged, throwing aside the box, and out rolled Dinosaur. George shouted and ran to him. Peppa turned on her flashlight at full brightness. Its beam blinded the keeper. He squealed. His tentacles recoiled. He ran into a crack in the floor. Peppa and George descended the stairs. They ran into their bedroom and slammed the door shut. It was quiet in the room. On Peppa's bed stood the bear keeper, but he was motionless. Next to him lay George's dinosaur with a grin of needle-sharp teeth. They will come for you if you forget about them again. The family stepped into a cozy workshop. The shelves were lined with dozens of ceramic Labubu figurines. On one of them, a crack was visible along the side. From the crack, thin black roots slowly crawled out. All the figurines on the shelves simultaneously turned their heads toward the visitors. Their smiles stretched wide, their eyes becoming hollow. Damp clay patterns spread across the walls, forming into distorted little Labubu faces. The workshop owner stood behind the counter. Behind her, all the clay Labubu stared directly at the family. The display case trembled, and on the cracked figurine appeared a wide, unnatural grin. The family descended into the basement. The walls there were coated with hardened, glossy clay, and the door to the storage room was tightly shut. On the potter's wheel stood an unfinished statue. Its features blended the face of a monster with that of Labubu. From the kiln, a scorched clay hand burst out and seized the statue. The staircase was crowded with small Labubu figurines, their heads turning in unison toward the people. Sticky clay squelched under the family's feet, slowly pulling them deeper and deeper. In the kiln's window, shadows flickered with enormous grins, as though someone was watching from inside. The basement wall cracked open, revealing a passage into a cavern of solidified clay. The underground hall was entirely sculpted from ceramics. In the center rose a throne. Upon the throne sat the Queen of Labubu. On her head was a crown of sharp shards. Her empty sockets were filled with tiny clay copies of the family. The family sank waist-deep into the soft clay. Around them wandered small, twisted Labubu, creeping ever closer. The family had already turned into porcelain figurines. They stood frozen among the ceramic decorations of the underground kingdom, while the Queen of Labubu smiled with her eyeless face.